Welcome everybody to the Wake Up Call channel. A few people have pointed out to me to check out a trailer for a video game that came out in 2005 called Shattered Union. And I had never seen this before. I'm not very well versed in video games, but obviously hearing these things and everybody sharing this stuff with each other is so crucial so we could see how this thing is playing out in front of us. Everything they do is scripted. And by they, I mean the controllers who control both political parties. They control all the corporations. They control everything, all the media. There is no freedom when it comes to having your mind invested in the stuff coming out of the television set. It is a controlled reality, a simulated reality. And the majority of these things that we see playing out that we think are real are actually scripted. Now, it's very easy to get caught up in the political theater, but there's a reason there's that motto, political theater, because it is in fact theater. And this trailer I'm about to play for you for Shattered Union literally shows you what is going on right now. It shows you the plot that we're seeing with Donald Trump and Joe Biden, which again is a scripted plot. The goal here is to cause chaos, order out of chaos. The two people who are pitted against each other are probably the only two people right now who could cause chaos, the two of them. Each side working together to bring down the United States of America, because the New World Order only succeeds when all governments crumble and it rises from the ashes. The New World Order does, like the Phoenix Rising. Look at this trailer and think about how this theme is exactly what we're experiencing 20 years after this game came out.
Following a disputed election and a tie vote, the U.S. Congress installs the most unpopular president in U.S. history as David Jefferson Adams becomes the 44th President of the United States. Shortly after the election, increased unrest, rioting, and a growing number of militias have given rise to ever-increasing domestic terrorism. In response, the president invokes the Homeland Security Act and declares martial law on the West Coast and other areas of the country. Though highly contested, a Supreme Court ruling sidesteps the electoral process, disqualifying popular presidential candidates from several states. Public outrage explodes when a sham election leads to incumbent David Adams accepting a second term in office. During the 57th Inauguration Day ceremonies, Washington, D.C. is struck by a low-yield nuclear weapon, killing David Adams and most of the U.S. Congress. The destruction of Washington, D.C. effectively breaks the chain of succession, sending the nation into chaos. In an emergency vote, the European Union deploys peacekeepers in the greater D.C. area to secure international interests. With separatist sentiment rising, California's governor declares home rule and secedes from the Union. Texas follows quickly and declares sovereignty, taking neighboring states with them and forming the Republic of Texas. Now, the once United States of America lie in ruin. The time for words has passed, and a second American Civil War now erupts as 7 factions wage war across the land. They battle one another to reclaim a nation, to restore peace, to rebuild this shattered union.
Now again, it's not a coincidence that a trailer like this for a video game that has that plot is happening in front of our eyes, because most of the time they reveal these things to us way ahead of time, right? In the 2000s and the 1990s, we saw films about outbreaks, right? We saw films about outbreaks and getting technology inside of people's bodies, about uploading consciousness, and look where we are now. All that stuff, like The Lawnmower Man and the movie Outbreak, are playing out right in front of us, or did just play out, in some cases right in front of us, and are playing out right now in front of us. So, let me read to you the plot for Shattered Union. Because again, you saw the trailer, but listen to this word for word. Shattered Union is a turn-based strategy game released on PC and Xbox in 2005. The game is set in 2014. 6 years prior to the beginning of the game, David Jefferson Adams is elected as America's 44th president and a highly unpopular one at that, resulting in high levels of domestic unrest, terrorism, and armed resistance that leads to martial law. After he gets himself a second term in a blatant sham election, domestic terrorists detonate a low-yield nuclear device over Washington, D.C. on Inauguration Day, killing Adams and most of the United States federal government, breaking the line of presidential succession in the interest of maintaining trade relations. The European Union dispatches detachments of armed peacekeepers into the ruins of Washington to help rebuild the city, maintain order, and eventually reestablish the original government. They are less than popular with the locals. In fact, they are so unpopular that soon after their arrival, California and Texas declare home rule and secede from the Union. Many other states soon follow. Within months, the only states still pledging loyalty to the original government are the ones under European Union control. Sooner or later, someone's nerves get the better of them, and a shot is fired, and the Second American Civil War is officially underway, with every single faction fighting every single other faction for control of the nation. Meanwhile, Russia, under ultra-nationalist government, invades Alaska, claiming that it was rightfully theirs to begin with. So the plot is obviously chaos that we could see actually happening around us. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to play out exactly as this video game says, but think about where we were in 2005 when this game came out, 2006, and where we are now. At that time, when this game came out, nobody would ever have thought that this would be possible. Nobody would ever have thought that there'd be a second civil war, let alone two presidential figures that were so polarizing and unpopular that they'd actually be running against one another, right? Think about that. We're not talking about one unpopular candidate running. We're talking about two guys running for re-election who couldn't be more unpopular with each party, with each opposite party, and in some cases within their own party. And that's what we have now, right? Talking about succeeding the Union. This is a theme that we see now too. If I told you in 2005 that there was a chance that Texas would leave the Union or California, people go, what would they ever leave the, why? What? Huh? Well, now if I told you that, you'd say, well, I could see that. Everything we just saw, right? With Texas and the border, what were we hearing? Texas is gonna leave the Union. Texas is threatening to leave the Union. We heard conservative states say they support Texas leaving the Union since the federal government won't do anything about the border. Take a look at California, the other state portrayed in the game, right? Would you ever have thought 20 years after this game came out that California, which is probably the most beautiful state top to bottom when you look at it from a standpoint of natural beauty and national parks, that it's the most corrupt and probably the most unpopular state in the United States of America, not named New York, that they have the most unpopular governor maybe in the history of the United States of America? So these are things we can now see actually playing out. Now, the theme of something happening on Inauguration Day, right? This is in 2005, 2006. Well, what did we just see on Inauguration Day, on January 6th? Well, we saw a very similar thing. Now, of course, they're two different extremes. You're talking about the video game portraying a nuclear attack versus the Black Ops operation, the Black Ops climbing and scaling, the Capitol building, looking like Spider-Man when they were telling us that these were regular folks who apparently have the ability to scale buildings in their spare time. They are rock climbers and everything else. I mean, it couldn't have been more staged and more set up. So look at where we're at. And these are all themes of this game that we could see very well playing out in today's world. Even the tie-in with Russia and Russia invading Alaska wouldn't seem out of the realm of, it wouldn't be out of right field to think of Alaska if they're claiming that, Russia claiming that Alaska was rightfully theirs to begin with. Well, that's the same exact theme you see in Ukraine. That's the same thing that they talk about. Russia is trying to take back their territory, right? That's what they're talking about. The expansion of Russia and Ukraine. So think about that from that standpoint. Very similar theme. And all of these plots, people think that they come up with this stuff, that there's a bunch of amazing writers who are so talented sitting in a room and they come up with this stuff and, oh man, aren't they special and aren't they great? Well, that's because this stuff is given to them. That's given to these people. And these people are not just random people. These aren't just people that go to film school or video game development school. They're hand-selected people who obviously network through secret societies. They're all members of the same brotherhood, right? They go through Demolay, a lot of them start off as children, groomed as children in Demolay, Job's daughters, Rainbow Girls. And then as they become Eastern Star, Freemasons, and they go through other secret societies at, colleges like Yale or all these Ivy League schools like Lock and Key, Skull and Bones. That's how this works. And then they're given these scripts to carry out these games. And then you're told that these people are just very talented, they're creative, they're artistic. You should strive to do this. And you wonder why you never get a tap on the shoulder if for a good idea to become a screenwriter or to be the next, music talent. Because it's all controlled. These scripts in Hollywood are all controlled. Do you see the pattern? This is the expansion of the CIA in Hollywood, literally rolling out mind control propaganda to you and programming you through films. Same thing with video games. Video games have become such a way to program the youth out there. There's so many themes in a lot of these games. I've covered goat simulator, sacrifice, animal sacrifice, human sacrifice in a lot of these video games. What else do we see? Games like Fortnite. So there's a lot of programming in video games just as much as there are movies, if not more now than ever before. Because more youth, more teens out there are playing video games, or just as many are playing video games as the ones who are watching Netflix and watching, movies that are coming out from Hollywood. It's just another way to get them. And to get them to interact in these games is a different form of mind control versus just watching a movie. Getting them to interact and play a role in these games is another form of MK Ultra programming. Actually training these people beforehand how to react in a situation like this when it actually goes down, right? We see that with video games like Grand Theft Auto, etc. So Shattered Union has very similar themes, if not almost an identical theme to what we're seeing going on in the world. And when they show you that president and they say he's a highly unpopular one at that, well, look at both sides now. As much as we have the MAGA obsession behind Trump, Trump is one of the most unpopular people in the history of America, and so is Joe Biden. Both of them are. There's a small group that are obsessed with Trump, but every single Democrat, so you can say 50% of the population, can't stand him. In fact, loathe him. In fact, will celebrate when and if they pull some type of fake attempt on his life. And the same can be said for conservatives who look at Joe Biden. So that's why I talked about how it had to be these two. That's why I don't see Joe Biden getting replaced in this election. Everyone's running with Michelle Obama, Michael Obama, all these other narratives. This works perfectly to create a civil war because nobody's going to believe the outcome of the election anyway, no matter which side they end up putting in charge. And it'll make more sense, obviously, to continue this theme with Democrats gaining control and the majority of people not believing it because nobody knows people who are actually voting for these incompetent fools who keep winning all around the earth, right? And they're making conservatives out to be terrorists. So that's all done by design as well. So Shattered Union is the game for anybody out there that wants to check it out and check out the trailer for themselves. I thank everybody for being here. Thanks everybody who shared this with me. I appreciate it. God bless all of you as always and your families.